Turkish Cafe, and this is As Real as They Come, Dallas, and I am Jennifer Loading.
Yulia Brown.
All right, Yulia, and first of all, we want to say, make sure you subscribe to our page, like, comment, share, and Yulia, what are we doing today?
We're talking about violence against women, talking about safety and what we can do to prevent ourselves from harm or helping others to learn about prevention. And I would like to introduce these beautiful ladies. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Fletcher, and I serve as the Collin County Commissioner for Precinct 1.
Miss Allen?
Yes, I'm Ellen Skinner. I'm an attorney. My husband is the Collin County Sheriff.
Alicia?
I'm Alicia Bush, and I'm the founder of Treasured Vessels Foundation.
Wonderful. So we've been coming across a lot of gruesome statistics on how many women get hurt, and one of it I came through in 2017. I know it's a little dated, but unfortunately numbers only continue to grow. About 87,000 women were killed, and what's even more frightening is that almost 50% of those women were murdered by their family members or someone they were involved intimately with. And I know that you ladies prepared some materials that will help us to go over something more recent that we have and how we can prevent. I know that Mr. Skinner, or Sheriff Skinner, put together a wonderful presentation for us to help us teach women and get them more aware about this situation.
Yes, he did. One of the things that he really focuses on is making women, making just everybody aware that we need to be responsible for our personal safety in all settings, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether you're walking your dog down the street. There are steps, there are measures that we can take to prevent harm to ourselves, and also just to just how do we react if we are confronted, if we are attacked, if we are robbed. So there are some materials that he put together, and we can just kind of give our thoughts on that and just our own opinions on what we do as women to protect ourselves. So.
Absolutely. So Alicia, I know that you are in sex trafficking prevention, and you work with the Treasured Vessels Foundation.
I know, it's a tongue twister.
Wearing one of the shirts that you can get on the Treasured Vessels Foundation.com website. And we sort of touched before the show that even though this whole virus, COVID, happened, that there is still demand for this sexual trafficking and other things. So what do you see right now?
Yeah, one of the things that we're learning is that even though you may not see the girls out on the street as much, because maybe the buyers, which we call the Johns, are at home. Maybe they are being quarantined. Maybe they're not able to go to work. Maybe they're with family, so that doesn't allow them the opportunity as easily to be able to go out and in person engage in paying for sex. So we've seen an uptick in online ads, which is surprising. I mean, I guess it's not surprising, right, that we would see an uptick, because at the end of the day, the trafficker demands a quota, places a quota on the ladies that he's trafficking, and so that quota still remains. It doesn't go away just because of COVID. And so just being really mindful of what we're seeing, especially what you're seeing in your neighborhood, what you're seeing. You know, there's so many, I know Ken Paxton has a Be the One campaign, and he talks about how one individual was living, there were several stories about individuals living in neighborhoods just like are around here, and brothels were actually in those neighborhoods, and just because someone started to pay attention at something that was going on that was unusual, and they just started to monitor. They actually used a baby monitor to see how many kids were coming in and out of this particular street, because it was a one-way in and one-way out. They were like, man, there sure is a lot of traffic going to that house. Started paying attention. Another story was a young woman was taking out the trash, and they didn't recognize that young woman, and she just continued to take out the trash day by day until somebody ended up approaching her, which is also can be kind of dangerous as well for the individual. If somebody is watching her, you approach her, and that individual, that victim, could kind of get punished, if you will. So we're just being really careful on how we approach an individual, but they were able to make a phone call to the human trafficking hotline anonymously, and got some investigators out there and did a bust, and there were about 12 ladies that were in that home that were being trafficked. So I mean, there's so many different ways human trafficking happens. So many times I think that we think like in probably some of the stories even we're talking about that are not familial with family members, but talking about a woman being abducted, whacked over the head, put in the back of a car, and kidnapped. A lot of times trafficking doesn't look that way. I mean, it's a force, fraud, or coercion. There's some sort of manipulation, some sort of quote-unquote brainwashing that happens in the process. But then once the young lady may get out of line, may decide, I'm tired of this, may talk back, may miss her quota, then food is withheld, or then she's physically assaulted. Then she's taught a lesson, usually in a physical way, that causes fear and submission. As in, it's easier for me just to stay here in this situation and be abused, or not be abused, right? Because I'm gonna do as he says. Right. So I'm gonna continue in this cycle years later, and it's just it's hard for us to come to grips with that, because I think so many people think that when you're in that kind of situation, why didn't you just get out? Why didn't you just leave? We really have to start peeling back the onion, and now that's what law enforcement is being educated more in, like, before I just label her as fill in the blank, let me start asking some more questions to find out who's actually behind this abuse, this force, fraud, or coercion.
I think one of the biggest things that you said is just being, as a citizen, being aware of your surroundings, whether that's for your own personal protection or paying attention to things that are happening around you that we feel very much, especially in Collin County, we feel like we're insulated, and that's not happening here, but it is.
Right.
And people don't fully understand that, and it's important to get that message out so we know the signs to look for and the things that are just out of place. Something's just not right. And so what are the best ways to follow up on that information once you have that feeling? Like, how do you proceed?
And I think that's, we were just talking about this, of how do you best proceed that keeps that person potentially safe, right? Because we don't really want to alarm the abuser, that we may be on to them. That may be a good thing, that may be a bad thing. So being able to call a human trafficking hotline, being able to call local law enforcement. There's oftentimes, especially if it's human trafficking that you think, there's oftentimes now departments that specialize in that. Maybe a general state trooper may not be, but there is an area in the local law enforcement, the sheriff's department, Department of Public Safety, Homeland Security. There are different units to be able to say, hey, here's some things that I'm seeing. Can you do a check? What do they call that? Like a
wellness,
welfare check.
Welfare check.
Yeah.
And just start asking some questions, and hopefully the signs are there enough to be able to investigate.
Wow.
So, Ms. Skinner, what would you say? What is your perception in all of that, and what kind of information do you have at your disposal from the sheriff's office perspective?
As this has become more commonplace, so the training has stepped up, and it is part of law enforcement to inform and to teach the officers and the deputies how to identify these victims when they encounter it, and when they see somebody in a car and something just doesn't look right, how do they deal with it to determine whether or not this is actually a case. But yeah, I mean, it's really sad that it's become so commonplace that this is part of the training now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had a quick second to glance over the sheriff's presentation, and it's interesting how there are great tips, something that you would think would come intuitively, but it's really can either make it or break it. It can make you from being a survivor or a victim of crime, because there are 3 bases to that. Is the desire, and then there is a skill to do that, and then there's an opportunity, and we have to make sure that we at least defend ourselves on one of those bases. And I know that I had personal experiences where the potential offender was going to do some harm, but it was very important to make a very quick decision. Always be around, like, aware of your surroundings, be in the lit up area, try to stick closer to people and to the crowd, and that will kind of reduce the effect for them to even do anything harmful to you. Again, be aware of who's following you in your vehicle, because I remember at least on 2 occasions I had people following me. And never approach your house, just make circles, try to go to a public area. Like, I went to a gas station and the person said, well, I thought you wanted me to follow you. I'm like, who in the right mind wants you to follow anyone? It's not romantic, it's not exciting, it's certainly not flattering. This is scary and creepy, and it's like, please proceed with your route before I contact the authorities. So I've been also to, as an immigrant, I remember that my ex-husband used to tell me, well, you're an immigrant, so you're not legal here. I can drop you into a swamp and nobody would even research on you. You know, you can give in to fear. You could be like, all right, or you just stand up and say, well, you know what? I'm going to fight. And fight, not necessarily start fist fighting with a guy, but start thinking about smart ways to get out of this situation. Not provoking another fight. You already know that you will not convince him to be a better person. You just basically start reasoning yourself. Okay, my paperwork, where is it? Take it to work, hide it. Then you proceed with funds, collect $50, $100. You just, it's a big deal, because when you get out, it can be your funds for 2 weeks, it can be your funds for next 2 months. So you just have to prepare yourself. And I must say I was very blessed with all the wonderful human angels surrounding me, because when this situation occurs and you're ready to make that move, you will meet people that are willing to help you, that are willing to guide you, that will protect you. So overcoming the fear is the biggest step, in my opinion. So, and there's always a solution with that.
I'm sure that's complicated, and you may be able to share with children. I mean, if you've got children at home, like, that's even harder to figure out how are you going to get out of the situation and keep your kids safe and keep him from finding out, you know, you're getting safe, and planning for that. And I can't imagine.
Yeah, you know, one of the things when we were setting up our safe house for trafficking survivors, we met with domestic violence shelters around, and just said, you know, how do you keep your the ones that you serve safe? How do you not disclose the address? How do volunteers, are they able to come and serve? And I even just, how do you set up a water bill? You know, is it in the organization's name, or is it in a personal? I mean, I was just, like, all the little things you don't really think about when setting up a safe house. And there was such a great deal of knowledge out there. They've been doing this for a long time, so they've learned a lot of the, you know, it's not foolproof, but even for our young ladies that we serve, one of our non-negotiables, meaning you leaving the program, is sharing the location. of where we are. And just telling that is so incredibly vital, not only for your safety, but everybody's safety within the home, especially if you're testifying against your perpetrator. It's just really, really enforcing that to them, but for them to also hear that the others in the home also take it seriously, their safety, so that they don't think that we're just kind of, we take like cell phones, for example. When they come in with a cell phone, we put it in a very special protective bag and take it off site. So anything that they may have on them that could potentially be tracking them, that they may not even know about, just trying to help them first and foremost before they can begin the healing process and be able to be a mother and get a job and sleep through the night. I mean, they have to feel safe.
Oh yeah. There's so many things though that can track you. I mean, these little discs that it goes on your keychain, or that you may not even know is on your car or in your car or wherever. I mean, it's overwhelming to think about what you have to go through. But I'm just inspired by what you've done, and I'm a big fan. I'll just have to take a little break and give you a shout out. I'm a big fan of Treasured Vessels, and was so excited when you got to kick off and was there at your celebration. And I think it's a neat story of how you got started, and hearing the burden that you had, that the Lord had put on your heart, really. And that's exciting and frightening at the same time. But not everybody will go forward with the calling that they feel. They feel that tug.
Sure.
But it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of organization and partners, and it's a lot to do. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh, well, thanks, Susan. I appreciate that. It's, it does, like you said, I mean, it does take a village, and it does take learning from, like, why would you go and visit with a domestic violence organization? That's not what you do. No, but they've learned so much in this space. They all kind of cross over. So many law enforcement going into law enforcement saying, okay, if you were to find a young lady that you're suspecting as being trafficked and they need a safe place to go, what would that look like? Why would you bring her to us? What would make you feel safe bringing her to us? And how would you even know about us? Like, do you have like a database? You're going to have to put my number in your cell phone and be like, oh, this is the time I should call. And that coordination and how many it takes. And I was so in awe of how many organizations are in this space that, in human trafficking, it's something new. And domestic violence isn't necessarily, we talk about often, but we hear about it.
Oh, definitely.
More often. And I was just thinking about what you're talking about, the third part, opportunity. Like, such a small example. We were at the beach with my kids, and my kids are young, and I try to talk to them about safety things in just a very matter-of-fact kind of way, because they respond if I'm gonna cry or be fearful. They're like, oh my gosh, is the world coming to an end? But tried to, my daughter had left her sunglasses sitting on the table, just kind of out in the open, right on the walkway. And I said, hey, why don't we take those sunglasses and put those in the bag? And she's like, well, why? I said, you know what? We don't ever want to create an opportunity for someone that left their sunglasses at home to maybe want to borrow yours.
Teachable moment.
And it was like, so it's not always this, people are bad, there are bad people out there looking to hurt you, but it's more of this, there are people out there that will make bad choices, and we don't want to be creating an opportunity for them to do that.
Right. It's like all of us, being at home during this quarantine, and some of us, I'll point fingers at myself, may want to eat the snacks a lot. You don't want to just lay them all out on the table, because I might cheat. But people can cheat in many ways, and they can do bad things. And if you put those things out there, and it matters. It shouldn't, but it does matter how we dress and the kind of attention that we're attracting, and just different things think about where you're going and who's going to be around. And those, I think I saw a show years ago, and one of the best pieces of advice was if someone does try to take you, if you have become that opportunity, do everything you can to scrap and claw to not be taken to the second place where they want to take you, because that's more private, and they're going to do what they really want to do there. This is your opportunity, so don't be compliant at that point. You know, do what you got to do, because you don't want to be that next statistic, and that's the thing that's stuck with me. But there's so much more advice here, and I'm glad that the sheriff put this together, because we're going to attach it to our podcast, and you know, make sure that everyone can download the presentation and know we're going to certainly highlight some of those things here. But we're blessed in Collin County. We have a great sheriff. We have a great DA. You know, we're catching them, and we're prosecuting them. We're putting them away, and it's important, you know, that we have such great participation and great community partners outside of that, you know, and I'm thankful for that at the county. But we can't be everything, and so education is a big part of it for the whole community.
And Alicia, you touched on this earlier. There is not one stereotypical look to this. I was in education before I went to law school, and I noticed a situation in which a mother was prostituting out her child, basically, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I reached out to the local law enforcement and let them know, and it seemed like it took forever before this actually showed up in the papers. And unfortunately, it was a teacher was involved, was part of that triangle. And you know, I was in the right place at the right time to see the strange interactions, and to notice that this child was receiving credit cards, mom was getting gifts, things were happening that were alerting me. But I think all of us are, you know, no matter what our walk is in life, and no matter what we do, if we stay at home or whatever, are in a position where something could be happening right in front of us. And if you take a special interest in it, and just start noticing, you know, that something isn't wrong, maybe, like you said, the neighbor on the street who started paying attention, it's really eye-opening and very sad that this can happen, and in a public education setting, in a neighborhood setting, anywhere. And so this child obviously did nothing wrong. And what a betrayal of trust that a parent was involved in that. So
and it's definitely, when you become more aware of those things, number one thing, don't forget about your own safety, and make sure that you approach authorities, DA office, and they will assign a person to help you monitor the area so you're not exposed yourself as an individual. Another thing I would suggest, something that helped me with building my spirit up, I was a kickboxer for a long time, so even with my training, I was in an abusive situation where I was like, all right, I can go fight back physically, or I just put my brain together. So I had the fighter's discipline not to let the best of me go, and to start thinking more logically what I can do to protect myself. But it really does help when you know that in your back pocket you can actually protect yourself when things come down to that. And simple things like keeping your phone charged at all times. Make sure you hold on to that. If you get in the car accident, which is also in this presentation, crack your window up. Don't open your window. Don't allow this person into your personal space. Don't get boxed in. If anything, if you get pulled over by a suspicious vehicle, because there are people that posing as police officers out there, drive to the nearest gas station. Put your emergency lights on and just slowly approach. Just show your intent that you will pull over when the time is right. So that's another thing. And stay in elite areas. Try to have a couple of friends with you when you go shopping. If you're a child that's watching this, let your parents know what you're route is, where you plan on going. It's not invasion of your privacy, but it's your own safety.
Yeah. And I will add to what you were saying too. I haven't said a whole lot. I've been listening to y'all. First of all, I have had a daughter that's been sexually assaulted, so I have been through this. So I know the ramifications that come from all of that. And as a mom of 2 adult daughters, this stuff weighs heavily on me. So when we talk about like trafficking, even just like this weekend, I had my middle child went out of town, and they have the location tracking on their phone. Well, she's at the age now where that's not cool. We take that off, and I'm like trying to explain to her, look, I don't want to track you. I just want to know you're safe. I want to know you're at the location where you're at, going to be there, where you're at, and you're safe. And her phone had, while she was there, she dropped it in the river, dropped it in. So her phone was dead. They left on Friday, got there, and we're coming back on Sunday. Her phone had been dead from Saturday over 24 hours to Sunday. So as a parent, that feeling that's going through your mind. Well, interestingly enough, my husband, which never really worries about anything, he said to me, the first thing that's going through my mind is that movie Traffic. And so these are the things, as a mom, we do worry about these things. But when you were talking earlier about these steps, that having the kickboxing in your background, one of the things I did in my 20s very early on was I took a self-defense course for myself. And that was one of the things, even with my children, I put them in karate because I wanted them to be able to have some of these skills, because I think confidence comes with that. Yes. And these perpetrators look for things in these kids. And like when you were talking about the brainwash, it's not always that let's hit you on the head, take you down kind of thing. They look for these kids who are vulnerable, right? Yeah. And so as a parent, I've always been really, hard with trying to keep my kids in that space of being confident, having these skills. And I always say, like me, if you're going to try to take me down, you're going to go with a fight. I promise you, there's going to be some jugglers, some fingers in your throat, something happening. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to instill in my children, but as a mom, my point is we still worry about those things every single day. Every day when you can't find your kid, or at that moment, like I said, that phone, my husband's like, her phone's probably dead. She waltzed in the door, it's the first thing she says, we have a problem, the phone's broke. I'm over there thinking something bad's happened. But it's very real, and I love what you're doing. I said that when you were on our show the last time. I think it's an amazing thing. There was another movie I just seen recently that was about trafficking, and it was just I don't know the name of it, really just, it is a creepy thing. It is just, and what is with all the Amber Alerts that are going on right now? Lord. That's another thing. I mean, what is with all the Amber Alerts that are going on? I mean, it just feels like it's nonstop right now. It makes you wonder.
Well, I mean, we have defensive driving that we do, and we teach our kids, when they're learning to drive, here's what you do, and here's how to avoid. And we need to really pay attention, and, defensive personal protection. Absolutely. When they're little, yelling, a kid screaming, you're just going to think he's being a brat unless he says, he's not my mom, he's not my dad. Exactly. Your kid, teach him to say that. That's important. And as we get older, the things that we need to do, those are important things in order to prepare yourself. Because if you're not prepared, you're going to have to think about it. It won't be second nature. It won't just happen where you do automatically the right thing. You have to practice, and you have to think about, what would I do? And unfortunately, you have to look around when you stop somewhere and, hey, where's the entrance? Where's the exit? What's going on? Just paying attention to all these little things that are out there. It's important.
We've all, and I don't know about you guys, but you talk about somebody following. I've had several times. I mean, just even recently at Legacy Square, I had somebody come out and was following my husband and I to our car. I mean, it amazes me that we have to have these conversations, but you have to be aware of everything, or not, like you said, in defensive driving, not just in your car. In fact, my son just got a car this weekend for his 16th birthday, so we're driving today, and I was having this entire conversation about be aware of your surroundings. Everybody, all the lights, people coming, going, but it's no different in personal safety. It's all be aware of everything around you.
Listen to the conversations. If people are too close to you, you're in the bar setting. I lived in New Orleans, in Metairie, New Orleans, whichever area you might be. Listen to what people say. If it feels weird, chances are it's weird.
Yeah.
And I was explaining the situation where I had a person following me and my friend out of the bar, and that was a very potentially threatening situation, because I did hear him say he doesn't know what's in my pocket. Well, you know what? I don't want to find out what's in his pocket. Therefore, I will avoid situation. I am not going to confront this person.
Right.
You walk to your car, I'm jumping into mine. Person tried to open my car. Lock your doors right away when you get into your vehicle. Lock it. I don't want to even be in the parking lot checking my anything. I'm in my car getting fuel. My doors are locked.
You're going.
I'm inside. Yeah. Unless I'm standing outside and I'm still looking around. I'm not going to be afraid to look around.
Have your keys in your hand.
Yep.
Ready when you're walking out. Don't be fumbling for your phone.
Oh, yes.
And don't go to the bathroom alone. I don't know how many times in college I probably went to the bathroom alone. I grew up in a small town. That really wasn't something that was talked about. When I went off to school, my parents were extremely nervous because I was extremely naive, and that's my love for people, right? Like, oh yeah, and my mom and dad were like, this is not going to go well. Thankfully it did, but I mean, it's so inconvenient, to be honest. We're sitting here at dinner, we're with our girlfriends or we're with families and whatever, and sure enough, you've got a multitude of children and they all have to go pee often. And so here we are, get up, go to the bathroom with them. And I go to the bathroom with my kids, just teaching them that very simple principle that we don't go to the bathroom alone. And I know that there was a story where a little girl went to the bathroom in a McDonald's, and a gentleman went behind her and locked the door. And no one was able to get in, but it's just those little things that are, like I said, little inconvenient, little like, oh my gosh, every time you turn around, you just sat back down, food just came, and now somebody's got to pee, But then the other thing I think I had taught my kids was like talking about kicking and screaming, and like if they're riding their bike or you have a skateboard or whatever you're holding that's big, keep holding on to it, because nobody's going to want to put you in their car with a bike.
Yes.
It is much more difficult, and you just kind of go. And the third part was talking about it often.
Yeah.
Like not the, hey, you should know, here's this, and then we kind of forget about it, but just all the time, not that fear, but just a very matter of fact, Mommy, why is the door locked when we can't get in? How come only your door only unlocks when we walk to the car? And I explained to them, well, you're wanting to get in the car, but what if someone else is next to my car and they want to get in the car with Mommy too? And Mommy doesn't want them in the car with her, and so they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. But just, like I said, a matter of fact, not a bad, scary, but just repeating it often. Who are safe people? What's appropriate touch? Location finder. We have Life 360, which we love because it can show a crash. It can show how many times you're on your phone, how fast you've been going. My mother has that. Like that. Oh, get this. So we're driving, and my mother texts me, and she was like, "Slow down."
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
I'm like,
that's so funny.
So she can see my speed.
Oh my goodness!
So she's like, I need you to slow down, please.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
When I have my mom in the vehicle and I step out into the gas station, I make sure that she locks the doors.
Yeah.
I try not to leave my daughter in the car alone at all, but when it's my mom, I'm like, even my mother, I'm like, anybody can jump into that front seat. They may only want the car, maybe some junkie, but what's going to happen to you? So therefore, lock the doors. Do not keep your doors open. Well, I really want to thank you ladies for being here today. Thank you so much. I'm really blessed that we can talk about this today and share our experiences, and hopefully we save one life at a time. That's already served the purpose. So
that's right.
And thank you for watching As Real as They Come Dallas. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button on the bottom. Whatever it is, please let us know what you think. Thank you.
Bye.